Karen. I'm an eating behavior expert. And what we're going to do this Friday is talk about emotional eating. Now, a lot of people are going through a lot of emotional eating. It's a very emotional, stressful time for us. So if your relationship status is it's complicated when it comes to food, don't panic. I'm going to help you start to get a handle on your emotional eating and really start to relax around food. Now, the number one thing to do that is to start to acknowledge and recognize when you're emotionally eating and what those triggers are. So, food is a very complex thing when it comes to human beings because we attach so much emotion, and this comes from a variety of reasons, right? So, you're not alone in your emotional eating. One of the big reasons that, or when we start to attach emotion to food and see it for something that's soothing or a reward, is from childhood, right? That's when we start to let go of food as just fuel and energy, and we start to attach these emotions. So think about in your life, what kind of things that you've done in your childhood that kind of you associate food with. So for a lot of kids, it's we get a lollipop if we fall down and scrape our knee, and that's to soothe us. So we kind of have that trigger of, oh, if I'm upset or I'm hurt, whether that's emotionally or physically, I want to eat something to feel better. Another thing is, it's a symbol of love. A lot of our parents fed us, and we had these warm emotions or comforts around food. So, for example, mac and cheese is often a comfort food because mom used to make mac and cheese for us as kids. Another habit that is tied to eating is cleaning your plate, because that's what we were told as kids, we have to clean our plate. So these are all ways that our childhood sort of interacts with our food and our eating, and we carry those habits through in life. Another one could be, I always have dessert after a meal because that's what we did as a family, and it kind of has that connection, right? So think about in your life what kind of habits that you've brought through into adulthood that are not serving you when it comes to eating, because you're emotionally eating. You're not eating for real hunger, or when you're physically hungry, you're eating for emotional reasons, and those that are tied to your childhood. Right. Another reason that we eat beyond just physical hunger for emotional reasons is to reward or soothe ourselves or justify our behaviors, right? We use food as compensation or as a dependency tool. So I've had a fight with my boyfriend and I'm upset, so I'm going to go eat some ice cream, right? To soothe me, to make me feel a little bit better. And physically, it does make you feel a little bit better for a very short period of time. So it releases a chemical dopamine in your brain, which makes you feel good. But it's fleeting, right? It doesn't last. So there's no long-term solution or help or soothing to this problem. And it's really starting to recognize that yes, I can go reach for the tub of ice cream to soothe myself if I'm upset, but it's not going to solve that problem in the long run. We also use food as a coping mechanism or avoidance, right? If you have this really tough report that you have to write, a lot of us will procrastinate by going to get a snack or, checking out the fridge, or as a coping mechanism for stress. That's something that a lot of us are doing right now, is stress eating. And again, it comes back to that dopamine feel-good factor. But what you need to recognize is that this is not a long-term solution. It is a very, very short-term solution. And with that comes a whole host of other problems, right? It sends your eating out of whack. It makes you feel guilty. And then you feel guilty, so you go on a diet, and then you binge. And then it's a whole other food drama that goes on. So what can you do about it? What do we want to do about getting a handle on our food anxiety or our emotional eating? Well, like I said, the first thing to do is to understand what's going on when these triggers happen, before you can start to break down these beliefs, these behaviors, these thoughts. So every time you have an emotional eating event that happens, or you can feel it coming on, I want you to write down, and journaling is so important, but I want you to write down what that situation was, right? Really dissect it, be a researcher. I want you to identify what the underlying belief is that's making you want to eat right then. And that's how you start to chip away at that root cause. And without understanding what the root cause is, you will never let this go, right? So you can tap into a diet that tells you don't eat the donut, but if you don't understand why you're reaching for that donut and sorting out the why underneath it, you're never going to be free from, and you're always going to have this eating anxiety, and you're always going to come back to emotional eating. So sorting out the root cause of what is driving that behavior is so important. So for example, I think I used this one already, but I have desserts every night after dinner, right? It's just a habit thing. Why? Why do I do that, right? So really, really start to challenge these behaviors. And so you can think, okay, well, that was from childhood because we all used to sit around the table and have discussion, and that was a way to extend that family time. And right now, I want to do the same thing for my own family. But there are other ways besides using food or desserts or sweets when you're actually full, that you can still bond as a family. Go for a bike ride together, have a games night or a quiz night. There are other things to do besides connecting over this food. Another example would be, and this was one that I used to do, come home from work and have a treat or a snack. And again, you've got to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Am I really hungry? If not, what's the reason that I'm driving to go and have a treat? And for me, it was stress, right? Stress of the job. I needed to just decompress. And a way that I felt like I needed to reward myself for my stressful day that I managed to get through was to eat a snack, like a sugary snack. Now, there are other ways when you start to challenge this. You think, okay, I recognize that I'm stressed from work. What can I do? Can I reduce the amount of stress at work? Can I cope with it better when I come home to decompress and kind of let go of the day? Can I go for a long, gentle walk outside, get some nature, breathe some air? Can I take a bubble bath? Can I watch a funny program for half an hour just to kind of relax and settle into the evening? So these are all non-food related ways that you can kind of soothe yourself, kind of get your stress under control without having to turn to food to cope with that. Another one is dieting, right? When you fall off your diet and you feel bad for the failure, often what we'll do is we'll sabotage ourselves because we feel like such a failure by binging on a whole bunch of foods, right? And so the key there is to understand, okay, I see what's happening. I'm binging on these foods when I'm not hungry. It's because I feel bad about myself. I feel guilty because I've fallen off my diet. Well, what can I do about that? Well, in my opinion, stop dieting, right? Dieting just sets you up for this guilt and the shame and the binges. And I have a whole program that can help you get rid of this diet mentality. In fact, you can start with my free webinar online class that gives you 3 ways that you can start to break free from that diet binge cycle. That's it's on my website, and it's also on the community group, so go find it, or if you can't find it, just give me a shout. So the point here for today's live session is really start to identify and work through what are your triggers. Now, slowly you'll start to recognize them. Then you can start to challenge them, and slowly you can chip away at them so that they are no longer a root cause. And this might take some time. It can take 3, 6, 12 months to really kind of dissect all of these things and break down these habits because you've had them for so long, right? And I just want you to be patient with yourself and go gently and be kind. Don't be judgmental with yourself. And if you fall off and you do have another emotional eating session, that's okay. You can learn from it. Every experience is a learning experience. But the more often and more consistently you dissect them and you understand what these triggers are, the less and less and less they become. So right now you might have multiple of these triggers, but the more you dissect them and challenge them, then they'll become a handful, and eventually they'll dwindle to nothing. So this is the key. Really, really start to challenge, dissect, acknowledge these triggers. Now, I do have a free worksheet that you can use to help you identify what your triggers are. So I will put this in the post for the live as well, so you can use that. And really let me know how you're getting on. If you've got any questions, please give me a shout. I'm happy to answer anything around emotional eating because I know this is a hot topic and people are really struggling with this right now. I'm going to do a few more lives on this topic as well going forward. Every Friday we have a live session. So please tune in or watch it, watch the replay, and do the work and really dig deep, because it is so worth finding that food freedom, and letting go of all that anxiety and that food drama. I'm Taryn. If you need anything from me, you just give me a shout. I'm here. And have a great weekend.